Now and speak to Adil Nchabeleng Independent Energy Analyst who joins us live now. Thank you so much, Mr. Nchabeleng, for your time. All these units breaking down right now, let's just start there. What are we reading into it?
Look, the current systems are breaking down because, one, there's been a neglect on what we've been saying all this time, that there is a crisis within Eskom whereby there is a constant 16,000 megawatts of scheduled break. And as a result, these breakdowns are causing major disaster within Eskom because it's always been the 16,000 whenever there is a load stage 6, there's always a 16,000 breakdown in terms of power plants. So Eskom is not recovering the current plants that are sitting idle and non-functioning. Instead, they are focusing on all other mitigation activities, such as your current energy action plan to bring in new generation and other things, but really focusing on the power plant restoration, fixing, and ensuring that they can function optimally. It hasn't been the focus. Maintenance, of course, it's at 7,000, which is another 1,000 plus or 1,002 more in terms of focus, but that doesn't mean anything because you're still having the backlog of that 16 to 18,000 megawatts of unplanned capacity, what you call a load factor, that is currently affecting Eskom. And if they don't function at that level to say, we resolve the current breakdowns and we restore these power plant units as well as plants to functionality and efficiency, we're not going to get out of load shedding. So unfortunately, it's a disappointing beginning of the new year, February, where we now are plunged into a major stage 6 load shedding. And it's a political suicide, by the way, because we are in an election season. People are already voting with their emotions right now.
And I'm going to get to that in just a moment, but I want to stay with something that you just said. Of course, you talk about the attention that needs to be paid into these power stations. There was a time, even last year, I'm sure you remember these headlines and the calls by the Minister of Public Enterprises saying that they want the skills, people with skills to come back to make themselves available. Solidarity was also in that regard, trying to be at the forefront as well to try and field people. Is it an issue of skills right now, or is there something more at play? Did we even get the skills we were looking for?
The skills that were spoken about, as usual, they always throw in the skills curveball in the context of discussion. The skills issue is not the current problem. Eskom is not plagued with skills. There's enough skills. 46,000 employees at Eskom are all capacitated and have enough skills. The current crisis is the focus in terms of what should be done. They are not talking about the real problem. There is some of these plants are standing still because of minimum emission standards, which means that the air quality that the plants must be producing is not reaching the required level. As a result, they are left idling. And some of them are breaking down on the basis that they are neglecting doing long-term maintenance as well as fixing and support on boiler tube leaks. That is why you have this recurring current plants that have been fixed that are going back into breakdown stages. But the bulk of Eskom's power plant problems are not fixed. It's 16,000 megawatts of power plants that are sitting, units, which means that there has not been money allocated to fixing those power plants. And we have written about this, we have discussed this at an analyst level, an analytical level, but government somehow refuses to attend to this elephant in the room. Instead, they keep on throwing the curveballs and other opportunistic projects such as, expanding the grid, doing away in terms of the transmission part of it. They talk about renewables, introducing of renewables, which none of them really attend to the real problem of load shedding. Load shedding sits with Eskom's power plants that are producing high level in terms of high frequency, high voltage frequency power that needs to be transmitted into the network. The current renewables do not produce high frequency, high voltage. They produce low voltage at a lower frequency level and cannot be transmitted into the network. So we can't even waste time discussing the issue around renewables and investment in renewables. The major project of South Africa should be powering up the power plants, returning back to coal, bringing in fossil fuel, your gas, as well as your pickers, and ensuring that we have pumped hydro storage, we have nuclear as a solution. So, I still don't understand that we're wasting time in an election season where we should be doing away with this problem. Load shedding was solved when we had Mpomakwana as the chairperson of Eskom, and he performed very well to the level where they immediately within 6 months managed to eliminate almost to an end of load shedding. As soon as he left, load shedding stages started going up, and then the lies around load shedding started increasing.
And talking about these different stories that we're hearing right now, the president on Thursday says that the end of load shedding is near. Minutes after he wraps up his State of the Nation address, Eskom released a statement and says that it's ramping up load shedding to stage 4 and then 5, and then we saw 6 then coming into play. And then at the same time, the day after that, the president being asked a question about when exactly, because yesterday you said the end is near, when exactly does load shedding end? He says that, no, I can't commit to a date. If I do that then, and it doesn't happen on that date, then you'll say I'm lying. And then you see the ANC SG tweeting, saying that stage 6 is clear sabotage and there needs to be stronger security measures. These different messaging that are in the public domain, they continue. And what are they doing to South Africans?
Look, it's a complete destruction of the economy. It's a complete decimation of our infrastructure. I mean, every time there's a load shedding, people are losing incomes, they are losing infrastructure. You know, in households, in businesses, the amount of instruments that goes off and actually never return back to operational, you know, they just break down because of the surges in frequencies and everything, the burnouts in terms of the instruments and some of the technology. Once you switch it off, it never comes back on again. So it's a huge cost. I mean, the estimates, people are saying 4 billion plus or so in the economy on a load shedding stage. It's more than that because there is other unaccounted for losses, incomes, people not having jobs, the delays in the economy on the traffic circles and everything, the unavailability of power, the additional cost to buying your diesel, to buying your infrastructure such as your solar for your house as well as your business to keep the lights on. But nobody takes into account that this is actually having a knock-on effect in terms of the economic performance, whereby the more we have load shedding stages, the lesser the economy performs and the GDP literally dissipates and reduces in terms of quantitative production levels. So, I don't know whether politicians do understand that machines that produce electricity are as simple as that. It's like your generator. If it doesn't work, you buy a new one. In this case, Eskom should have been fixed and rehauled to its original state. And all it needed was money, skills, and people. Instead, we are having political discussions and people giving us rhetoric long lectures on what should be done around electricity. I mean, I listened to the minister today talking about the problems, and it went into a tautological discussion of the problems that are existing and how they should be mitigated and how they are not going to compromise on the levels of planned maintenance. But he's not talking about the 16,000 problem. And then he introduces the discussion of the renewables. I would like to challenge the minister. Take us to one power plant that is renewable, that is solar-based or any other alternative, that is currently transmitting electricity from its power plant into the grid, and it's able to feed electricity into Johannesburg from any of the remote areas. Show us one power plant as the Minister of Electricity to say this renewable power plant is producing this electricity, and this electricity is currently being transmitted in the network and is consumed on the other side of the the country. There is not a single one because we are subsidizing solar power plants because it was an agreement made for Medupi and Kusile to be built as a structural adjustment program coming from the IMF. So the lies about how much we're going to build on renewables. When you build a brand new smart city with its own battery pack, with its own power plant units for your gas, then you can talk about a miniature solar grid that feeds that smart city. At the national long distance high voltage level, you cannot even talk about solar. So we must stop the lies and focus on the fundamentals. The fundamentals is Eskom power plants are broken and are not fixed. 23,000 megawatts is currently out of the network as we speak.
So Adil, then do these different messages that we keep on hearing from different role players here signal another crisis? It's not only a communication crisis, but it could also potentially lead us to a crisis of what you've just described, the mishandling possibly of the situation.
I doubt that there is a sinister plan in the making. Why am I saying this is, through our intelligence, we've picked up that there is a plan to sell Eskom before the elections. They want to sell the power generating units into 6 packs, which means they're going to bundle up the power stations and the units into 6 packs of companies that should be actually buying them up. Those 6 companies will be allocated these power units, and we will be told through a press conference or some announcement or a presidential executive order to say these power stations will be sold off so that we can remove the problem of load shedding, and these new companies can operate and run. That is the plan. That is the current discussion in government. They are not talking about it. Go and ask the presidency that have they not had discussions. Go and ask the Minister of Energy that have they not had discussions to sell current power plants into 6 packs, and come back and tell me. Those discussions have happened and there is a consideration. So I am of a sinister belief to say that I think they're throwing us into this tailspin in order to fast track the fact that they need to remove these power plants of the bank, of the balance sheet, so that they can bring in investors into these power plants.
All right. And just, of course, as we wrap up our conversation, about 10 seconds, how big of an issue, you signaled it at the beginning, is this likely to be going into the election?
Look, going to the election, they are going to make sure that the lights are kept up at all costs, but they are going to precipitate now the crisis so that we can buy into the idea of selling up of these power plants. The units are perfect. They just need to be maintained. They need to be refurbished. Where you have boiler tube leaks, you must fix them. There is no energy crisis. This is a precipitated crisis. And if the elections we go into it, I can assure you the ANC will lose power outright if they do not guarantee electricity within the next 3 months of the elections happening.
So just to double check, if we were to ask for this intelligence for you to share it with us around the selling possibly of Eskom, would you be able to do that?
It's my source, but I will give you the information.